That was pretty pathetic. It must have been a horrifically pathetic scream. If she ever really needed to scream, she'd probably be out of luck. Lord, that had been some nightmare. She didn't have nightmares. She was the most grounded human being she knew. Hell, she had grown up next to a bayou full of alligators and cottonmouths, and she had lived in a downtrodden area of New York City near Chinatown in order to afford NYU. She knew all about real monsters. Ghosts were creations to reel tourists in. So, with a groan, she threw her head back on her pillow and glanced at the clock. She needed to sleep. In a week's time, they'd be celebrating Donegal Plantation's biggest annual event, the reenactment of the skirmish here that had cost her ancestor his life. Ah, yes, and she had been dreaming about the skirmish, or the reenactment. That was it, she thought, grinning. She was dreaming about the events at Donegal Plantation because they were preparing for the day. History was always alive at Donegal. The plantation house was furnished with antiques, most of which had been in the family forever. There was an attic room that contained more artifacts from the Civil War than many a museum, down to letters, mess kits, knapsacks, pistols, rifles, and bayonets. Still, the reenactment remained a major undertaking. But they'd been running it since before she had even been born. It was rote by now. All the same, there was still plenty of bustle and confusion, along with everything that had to happen before the event could take place, including a mound of paperwork on her desk that had to do with the sutler's tent, the pop-up shop where period clothing and curios and other paraphernalia, such as weapons and antiques, were sold, which meant registrations and taxes. Then there was the insurance they needed for the day, and the officers to direct traffic and so on. That was it. She just had a lot on her mind. And the reenactment always reminded her of Jake. He'd never been a soldier, north or south, but he'd dressed up, and he'd played his guitar and sung music from the era. And sometimes she had played with him, and he'd always known how to make it just right, to bring back the past with the light of truth. She eased down in her covers, determined to forget both her anxiety and Jake. Not so easy, even though it had been a long time since Jake had been in her life. Finally, she started to drift again. She was comfortable. She loved her bed and her room, even if she had lived here her whole life other than college. Though she loved to learn about new people and new places, she also loved to be home. She started again, certain that she had felt a touch, something soft and gentle smoothing her hair, stroking her cheek. She sat up. Moonlight streamed into the room, and there was no one else here. With so many guests around, she had locked her bedroom door. She looked at her pillow and decided that she had merely rubbed against the side of the pillowcase. As she did so, she glanced at her dresser. There was something different about it. She studied it for a moment, wondering what it was. Then she knew. She kept a picture of her parents there, on her dresser. It had been taken almost 20 years ago. They were together, holding her between them, when she had been 5. It had been developed in sepia tone, and they'd had it done when one of the guests at a reenactment had found a way of making nice money by pretending to be Matthew Brady, the famed Civil War photographer. Throughout the day, he had answered historical questions about photography and its place in the Civil War. As was the custom of the day, none of them was smiling, but there was still something exceptionally charming about the picture. There was a light in her father's eyes, and just the hint of a curl at her mother's lips. Her father's arm was around her, his hand coming to rest tenderly on her mother's shoulder. She was sandwiched close between them, and in her mind the picture had been filled with love. It had become an even greater treasure when she had lost them. It usually faced at a slight angle toward her bed. The picture was turned away, as if someone had been looking at it from a different angle. It was such a little thing, but maybe someone had wandered into her room. Cliff ran the property and she ran the house, but they employed extra housekeepers in the main house when they had guests. They hadn't had guests in the house in the last few weeks, but the house was usually open, and her grandfather loved to walk anyone staying on the property through it. Depending on his mood, a tour could get long. And the picture. She turned over, groaning. It was just the angle of the picture. Jake Mallory should have slept well, with a